Hello everybody, how are you doing? This presentation is specific to the concept of strength versus power. So often when you talk with people about working out and they talk about powerlifting and strength training, etc., they sometimes miss the mark on what it is for an exercise to be power oriented versus strength oriented. And hopefully this presentation will help clarify some of that for you. I do want to have a little bit of a quick review, just kind of going over some of the stuff we've talked about thus far in the course, and then we'll jump into new business, which will be the presentation on strength versus power. So far, here's all this good stuff you guys have learned, right? We've gone through different ways to work out, whether it's machines, dumbbells, bands, using different types of modalities, which could be physio balls, BOSUs, foam rollers, etc., and using all this different equipment and all these different modes of exercise as a way to reduce the possibility of boredom and also increase the possibility of gains, which is really what you're after. And by gains, that can mean weight loss, that can mean strength training, flexibility. It could be any number of results. It's just specific to what it is you're trying to accomplish. But these are all tools that are used to facilitate that. All right, so it's strength versus power, right? If we look at strength, strength is the ability to exert force or do some type of work. So if I tell you, hey, I want you to push that boulder across the floor, we can calculate the amount of work. We can calculate the weight of the boulder and the distance that you're actually pushing the boulder, and that will give us work. Now, what changes is, if we ask you to push that boulder up a hill, that increases the workload because you're working against gravity. If you were to push the boulder downhill, that decreases the workload because you're working with gravity. So gravity does have a play in this, and friction as well. If you're pushing a box across the floor or a prowler type of sled, the amount of friction or coefficient of friction to get the thing started that you have will also factor into the equation. But for the sake of our conversation today, we're just looking at simple concepts of strength versus power. So to that end, I am most interested in you just viewing or visualizing pushing a boulder across the floor, and that will give you an example of work, the big W. Now, when you look at power, power is the amount of work divided by time. So when you do a workout, you're looking at a particular exercise. If you do the exercise quicker, you're in essence exerting force over a short amount of time, which means you are creating more power. So if we go back to our boulder example, I want you to push that boulder across the floor, but I want you to do so in the fastest time possible or the shortest amount of time possible. That now becomes a power-oriented exercise. Power incorporates time into the equation. It's quite literally power is work divided by time. So it's W over T, if you want to get all literal in terms of mathematics. So what does this look like? If we have a traditional squat over here to the left, there we go, if we can get these guys to load up, hopefully it's not too glitchy. And then we have a box jump over here to the right. Now what I'm going to do is play these side by side and I'll float back and forth. I'm going to try to keep my talking to a minimum because what I've noticed is when I talk over my videos while they're playing, it becomes almost garbled. I don't know if there's enough bandwidth to pull this off or something. But notice the speed of the squat and notice the speed of the hips and the knees on the box jump. So here's the squat. And if we bring it over here, watch the hips. So what you've seen there between those two is you have a loading phase where on this side we're dropping the hips down, but as soon as we start to extend the hips, they accelerate rapidly. With this, the speed of descent and ascent are pretty much similar. So we'll play that again so you can see it again. And pay attention to this, the hips. Now when we come over here, notice the hips will drop down and then accelerate quickly, almost like a snapping effect. Snap and snap. So the speed of the hips snapping is really what's giving us away in terms of one being more power oriented and one being more strength oriented. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide and see if we can compare that somewhere else. The two of these, you have a crossbody kneeling wood chop and a crossbody kneeling dynamic wood chop. One of them is a movement pattern, one of them is with power. So when you teach this from a coaching protocol and a teaching protocol as a coach, you teach from the fundamental movement patterns first. You then teach the movement pattern under load. So here we are with a medicine ball. And then if you want to take this further on a continuum to the right, you now teach and integrate in an exercise that's more power oriented. So it's movement pattern first, add loading parameters, and then power parameters as you progress somebody. So let's go ahead and give this a play here. And notice the speed of the movement. And with this, I just want to point out, in this example, we're going from the opposite knee. So in this example, we had right knee, left shoulder for 2 reps, and now we're going left knee, right shoulder for 2 reps. Left knee, right shoulder, left knee, right shoulder. This is right knee, left shoulder, right knee, left shoulder, left, right. Okay. We go over here. This is going to be left knee, right shoulder, but really what we're looking at is snapping the ball down. And notice now the acceleration that happens because of the hips. So the actual time to complete that exercise and snapping the ball down towards the floor, that time is much, much, much shorter, meaning we're accelerating the ball down to the floor. In both examples, gravity is our friend because gravity wants to pull the ball down to the floor, but it is in this example where the hips are engaged and we're rotating and snapping the ball to the floor. Whereas over here, it's just going cross body. So when we talk about strength versus power, it need not be in the context of just doing a squat or a box jump. It could be plyometric push-ups versus regular push-ups. It could be medicine ball throws versus a dumbbell bench press, a squat to shoulder press versus a regular squat exercise. So you're not completely tied to just lower body exercises when we talk about squats to shoulder press. All right, guys, so to that end, this is part of module 2, and I hope you guys are really getting a grip on how to actually go through these modules, have them up on your screen, have the presentation up on your screen and the write-up, and be able to do the check for learnings. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to reach out via my email and get yourself a good workout. Bye.